Welcome everyone to another episode of the Real Estate Mogul MD. My name is Thomas, joined here with Brett Riggins, co-founder of Physician Wealth Systems. We are here today to share real-world journeys along with the to-dos and, more importantly, the not-to-dos. Our guest today is Dr. Holliday-Bell, featured on Dr. Phil, certified sleep specialist, sleep coach, and board-certified physician who helps busy professionals lead happier, healthier, and more productive lives through the power of good sleep. Great to have you on, Dr. Holliday-Bell.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show.
Absolutely. So tell us more about this sleep solutions that you have going on.
Yeah, so it's interesting. As you mentioned, I'm a board certified physician, and actually by training, I'm a certified pediatrician. But throughout my medical training in medical school and residency in particular, sleep became very hard to come by. And as someone who's always needed a lot of sleep and thrived on sleep, it really just made a significant difference in my life and functioning when I was no longer able to get that. And so out of the necessity to fix my own sleep, I started to, train in the sleep clinic in my hospital, learn everything I could about sleep, read sleep books, put practices into place to fix that, and saw what a difference it made. And then decided to, build a company and become certified as a sleep specialist to help other people do the same.
Wow, that's really incredible. And this is something that you've been doing for how long now?
So officially, it's been about 2 years that I've had my business. I started it in residency training, though. Really, with a blog is where it all kind of started. So it's been a little longer than that, but officially for the past 2 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And doing this, is this something that you're still practicing medicine, or is this your full-time gig now?
I am. I'm still practicing medicine. So what's interesting is, there is a fellowship in sleep medicine that you could do, let's say, after my pediatric residency. And so I was, at the time, asked like, oh, why don't you become a sleep medicine physician? And even now people ask why I didn't go that route. And the reason is because I still love being a pediatrician. And so right now it's more of a 50-50 situation for me. I get to see my babies and kids in the clinic and I love them and practice in that way, but then also get to provide sleep consultations and give talks on sleep and all those things in my sleep business. So it's really a 50-50 thing right now.
Okay, yeah, we work with a lot of physicians. We know a lot of physicians, and they are busy, very, very busy. So that's very impressive that you're able to do both of these things at the same time.
So, hey, Angela, sorry, Brett here. The practicing pediatrician, and you're out of residency now, and you're practicing full time.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really exciting. And now you're saying, I'm sorry, I'm just following along here, and you get to do both now. You're the sleep doctor and the joys of being a pediatrician. Do you have any children yourself?
I don't, not yet. I like to tell people I have thousands and thousands of children that I take care of in clinics.
Yeah.
No biological children.
Sometimes though, I have 2 small children, and sometimes it's fun though when you get to love them and leave them, right? You get to, like a grandbaby, you can shake them up, give them sugar, and then send them back to their parents.
100%. And I get to sleep at night,
Yeah. Very interesting. Yes. So a little bit into my journey, like I said, we have the 2 small children, and learning that the joy, my wife is absolutely wonderful taking on the true challenge of being a parent, but the no sleep, and it's funny, like once you go through it now, you know that like that first few months, even at that, is just chaotic. And then every now and then you get somebody that says, well, we sleep just fine. The baby sleeps all the way through the night. Well, bless you. That is amazing. Yeah. But also interesting too, that you're talking to Thomas about the residency, not having that ability to sleep through residency. And I know a lot of our listeners, a lot of our community goes through the same thing. And I was very, very excited to speak with you today. And I know Thomas is going to have a lot of questions, because we actually, Thomas more than myself, research sleep quite a bit and the benefits of it. So me as a professional coming through, working all the time, like there would be nights, maybe 3 hours of sleep, right? And then just living with that. So I'm excited to learn more about, what you have and to bring to the table with that and suggestions, and kind of give it back to Thomas here to kind of guide you through on some of his questions that he has.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Angela, I think that we can all agree that most everyone lacks sleep. So for everyone listening who is lacking sleep, which is probably everyone, what are some of the things that people can do to either get more sleep or improve the quality of their sleep?
Yeah, you're absolutely right in that majority of individuals are not getting at least a good, consistent quality and quantity of sleep that they need. So much so that the CDC actually deemed sleep deprivation to be a public health epidemic almost 10 years ago now, because of how many people were walking around in states of insufficient sleep, and that number is just growing. What I tell people to start with is prioritizing sleep. Literally making it a priority will make a huge difference in the amount of sleep that you're getting. The reason I say this is because, as Brett mentioned, we're very busy people. Often we work all the time. You may have children. You may have other duties that you have. And so for many people, sleep is just not one of the things on that list. And so you get to the end of the night and you're done working. You put the kids to bed and you're done, binging Netflix. And then you're like, okay, now let's try to do the sleep thing. And unfortunately for so many people, that's just not enough. So starting your day with sleep in mind and setting up your day so that you are prioritizing sleep will actually make a huge difference for, honestly, the vast majority of people. Okay.
It's very, very interesting. So I'm hearing there is set up your day in order to prioritize your sleep. And for us personally, that is absolutely. So we have a new focus called Life by Design, living life by design. And that is definitely one of the priorities. And it was, working with Thomas and showing me the benefits of, hey, you've got to get 8 hours. And if it's 8 hours, even if it's 8.5, 7.5, if I'm focused, my day is scheduled around that. You're absolutely right. And I want to call you Angela. I just want to keep calling you Angela. But yeah, that's absolutely right. I feel that's a great question, Thomas and Angela. I'm on board with that for sure.
Yeah. It really makes a big difference. And I always try to tell people too, what you do during the day does affect how you sleep at night. So it's not just those 8 hours overnight. It's really a 24-hour process. In the way that you utilize the rest of the hours, whether that's 16, depending on your sleep need, is going to be much more efficient and productive if you've given yourself at least that 8 hours or whatever your sleep is overnight to get good quality sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been pushing just recently, a couple months ago, read this book, Why We Sleep. I don't know if you're familiar.
Of course.
Very interesting book. And after reading that, I started to make sleep a priority, realizing all of the effects that it has. For anyone who hasn't read that, why should we prioritize sleep? I know a lot of people will say, well, if I don't sleep, I sleep when I'm dead, or I can work more hours if I get 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah. I'd like to address that in a couple ways. So I hear that, I'll sleep when I die. And to not be overly dramatic, you are more likely to die if you're not getting enough sleep. And that is just like a principle or a message that I want to send to people, because it really is that serious. I always tell people it's easier to say what sleep doesn't affect than what it does, because every facet of your life, your mental and physical health and functioning, requires good sleep. You're literally more likely to get sick, as in have an illness, if you're not getting enough sleep. There was actually a study conducted that tracked the sleep of a group of individuals for a week and then exposed them to the rhinovirus, which is a virus that causes a common cold, had them in controlled conditions after that for the next week, and then tracked who actually developed symptoms of the virus. And those who slept less than 7 hours a week before the exposure were 3 times as likely to develop symptoms of the virus than those who slept 7 hours or more. So you're literally more likely to get sick. You're more likely to suffer from mental health disorders like anxiety, depression. You're more likely to gain weight and become obese if you don't get enough sleep. The hormone that makes you hungry, ghrelin, is produced in larger quantities when you're going off of insufficient sleep than the leptin hormone, which is the one that causes you to be full. You're also more likely to make poor food choices, and you're less likely to be active and physical. So you're more likely to be obese. Subsequently, that leads to several, long-term chronic conditions. But separate from that, when you don't sleep, your body actually goes into a state of stress. It's like, let's sound the alarms, because there must be a reason that we are not getting sleep. Something is going on, so we need to fight or flight, be ready. But what happens is when that's happening all the time, day after day, you're going with insufficient sleep is your body is constantly in that state. And that leads to chronic inflammation, which again, on its own is a risk factor for all of those chronic diseases. So literally you live a better, happier, healthier life when you just prioritize and get enough sleep.
So that one, Thomas, if you think about pain and pleasure too, kind of tie it all together. I've heard someone say, I think it was actually from Ed Milet. I don't know if you know who that is. And I've heard him say, live like it's your last day, but live like you want one more day kind of thing. So in order for me to live one more day, you just spoke of some great reasons. What if you focused on those benefits that will be there if you prioritize your sleep, therefore your health, your body, your associations. And if you look at it this way, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. My health is dependent on my sleep. So if I think about this, I want to walk my children. I want to walk my daughter down the aisle. I want to see my grandbabies. I want to see all of this stuff. And all of that based around my why, that's a moving, motivating factor. And then what made it so hard for me, and you may get this too, is I don't have enough time to sleep. And I felt like, and you said that, right? You said that, I don't have enough time to sleep. So I feel like I'm taking away from my day to get there. Like I was busy. I worked a lot of hours, and earlier on in my career, almost like I did real estate as a side gig kind of thing. And it was just constant. But the reality of it is, Thomas, how many days are in the how many hours are in the day?
24.
Yes. Dr. Holliday-Bell, how many hours are in the day for everybody?
24.
That's
same
right.
24.
If you're a billionaire, if you're a millionaire, if you're dead broke, that's the same amount of hours. And you hit it right on the nose with prioritizing that first, and even pushing it even farther to be more than just you, but what's your why behind who you are? And that sleep is going to take you there, right? And it's making that priority. And now we just make it happen. I actually work 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, and that's all that I've got. I've got to come in and get it done. And if I don't get it done, then I've got to focus on my priorities.
Yeah, you hit the nail on it. I love everything that you're saying. And I think creating that mindset shift is really what needs to happen. And I'm starting to see a little bit of a shift, and people are starting to catch on, and I love it. But that mindset shift of like, people say, I don't have time to sleep. And I say, you don't have time not to sleep. Like you can't afford to not sleep. And like I said, I also want to, and we can probably hit on this later, sleep need varies. So the amount of sleep you need per night varies. But let's say 8 hours is on average. The way that you utilize that other 16 hours is going to be so much more productive, efficient, happy, more enjoyable if you dedicate that 8 hours to sleep than if you say, oh, well, I can only sleep 5 hours. I can only sleep 4 hours because I have to get all these things done. You're more likely to get less done during that time by pushing it. So like, it just doesn't make sense to do it that way around. Dedicate the time you need to sleep, and the time that you're awake will be a much more productive and better way to spend your time.
That's awesome. I feel like I could go into rabbit holes for days with this discussion, because I mean, the things you do before you get to sleep, ultimately setting up your day to prioritize, but the things you get done before you sleep, limiting the blue screen stuff, limiting what and how you eat before bed, like these things to get set up to get ready for bed. And then the time that you're in bed and what your brain does while you're in bed is absolutely amazing. Like the neuroscience behind that stuff is just, I absolutely love it. And then as soon as you gain consciousness again in the morning, like there's so many vital things that happen. And if you prioritize sleep and look at, hey, I've got to set it up for this much time. This is what I'm doing before. This is what I'm doing during. This is what I'm doing after. Just imagine what it feels like to wake up in the morning and be grateful, to give myself goosebumps again and be happy, to be loved, to be so loved that you are glowing and giving that love, right?
Yeah. Sleep changes lives. That's what I say. Sleep changes lives.
Awesome.
So how do you help others who know that they have this problem, that they're either or maybe they don't know they have this problem? What is your approach to, one, identifying, and then two, bring that mindset shift for them so that they can start prioritizing it?
Yeah. So it starts with education. So I try to make myself in my message as vocal as possible on different platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, even like social media platforms that, historically are for entertainment and just, consuming little bite-sized pieces of information. I try to stick things in there to get people thinking and, meet people where they are, because a lot of people don't know. They don't realize how important sleep is. And so it's important that there are people to spread this message and spread this word. And then there are people who do know and are just like, I can't sleep. Like the person that I was, at a point in my life, are like, I'm trying. Trust me, I understand it's important. I just can't do it. And for that individual, there are actual proven therapeutic techniques that I go through with them to help fix their sleep. And a lot of it comes down to maladaptive thoughts and then subsequent behaviors that promote insufficient sleep. So there are many things that can happen in our lives, stressful situations, family stressors, work stressors, or whatever that can disrupt our sleep. That's normal. It happens to me as a sleep specialist. The problem for a lot of people is then they then start to engage in behaviors that then further promote sleep issues. And then it becomes a cycle and it becomes something that it's hard for them to get out of. So we have to kind of unravel this and like, okay, let's work on those cognitions, the misinformation, the thoughts that you have surrounding sleep, and then the behaviors that you're engaging in so that we can get you back to a point, because you can sleep. Everyone has the ability to sleep, but we just have to work on some things around it that have gotten you to the point that you are now. And that's really based on cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
Yeah, that's a great, I mean, I feel like we're to the point, I almost preach this all the time too, is, I mean, what you give energy grows, right? Yeah. So if you have a limiting belief or a non-limiting belief, that's what you're going to create. So if I get to the point, if I ask myself, hey, why am I not sleeping? Right. Then I'm going to find reasons to not sleep. Exactly like what you're saying. But even if we start by just changing the things that we say to ourselves, the story that we say, and say, hey, how can I sleep better? Right? What does a great sleep feel like? And then my brain, like the genie in the bottle, is going to go out and make it happen for me.
100%. How you think significant, like sleep is a big, in large part, a cognitive process. Your brain is working. So when you think things are turned off, no, your brain is doing many things when you sleep. And in order to get you to sleep, there are certain processes that need to be done. And you can help train yourself to do that. You just got to know how to do that. And I think a huge problem that I see for individuals who suffer from insomnia for a long time is this disconnect between the bed and sleep and what sleep means. For a lot of them, sleep means anxiety. It means I'm tossing and turning, I'm frustrated, I'm not going to function well tomorrow. And you have to break that relationship, because sleep is a peaceful, restorative, enjoyable process. And so you have to create that shift in order to get back to the natural beauty that is.
Yeah. Hey, so you started out with pediatrics, and in your experience with sleep kind of led you into the sleep journey as well too. But what was the first thing that drew you to being a physician in the first place, Dr. Holliday-Bell?
That's a great question. So I am one of those, I say weirdos, because I don't think that this is the typical experience. But when I was a little girl, 6 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a baby doctor. And I think for me in particular, I'm a minority, a female Black woman, and I grew up in the inner city of Chicago, is where I was born. And there were not, many people that looked like me who were in that role. But I do remember having a Black female pediatrician, and I didn't know at the time, but now that I can look back, I think that there was something I saw in her that I wanted to be able to be so intelligent and so warm and so caring and help people at their most vulnerable times, and especially children. Like that was like, oh, I want to do that. I didn't see that in anyone else. And so I made that decision at that very young age. And then, had experiences in life that further confirmed that decision and put myself in places to ensure that that's what I wanted to do. But I stuck with that. And yeah, it's something I'm so passionate about.
Awesome. Do you know who Tony Robbins is?
Yeah,
personal development. So in one of his books, I think it's Awaken the Giant, he gave this great analogy of beliefs, and like the top level of a belief is a conviction. And I just heard you, and you built your table, right? You had this idea, a baby doctor at 6, and then your experience seeing another physician who made you feel this way, built these legs of this table, and now you hold this feeling tight, and you get to share that with everybody else. That's an awesome story.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, we have a decent amount of of listeners who are going through residency or they are currently a doctor now practicing in medicine, and some of the people, they have the heavy workload going through school, or they just have crazy hours where maybe they're on call 24/7, or even nurses who have crazy schedules. Do you have any specific advice for someone either going through school like yourself, or also people who are just have those crazy hectic schedules that may keep them up in the middle of the night on some weekends or weekdays?
Yeah, I'll start by saying that's probably the hardest place to be in terms of getting good sleep. When you cannot keep a consistent schedule, when you have all these things, it is hard. And I can't lie. That's what broke my sleep, I like to say. But there are ways to still prioritize sleep. That's still going to be a thing. So I was still in the midst of residency when I was like, I need to fix my sleep. And for me, it was still making it a priority. And what I mean by that is I would, get home from residency. I like to work out. Like, that's what keeps me sane. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for a little bit. Then I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to watch these Netflix shows and like, yeah, I should be going to sleep, but I haven't had time to watch the show. So I'm going to just push it for another hour, maybe do some notes in bed and then pass out. And that was creating this cycle that was so hard for me to break. And so even though I only had a certain amount of time, it was a way that I utilized that time that made a big difference. Working out to me was important. I'm still going to work out. I'm still going to watch, a little bit of a show that helps me to decompress, but I'm not going to watch 2-3 episodes of that because now it's interfering with my time to sleep. And that is the time I need to restore myself. And I started to think of it like I go into the day with this much of my cup available. And every hour, more and more of that is taken, and sleep was a way that I refilled that cup. And so by robbing myself of sleep, I'm starting with less to give to other people, to give to my patients, to give to my husband, to give to whoever. And so it was that mindset shift. Even if my sleep need is 9 hours, which is difficult to get in residency, but even if I couldn't get 9 hours, I'm going to get that 7 hours that I can. Like it was about refilling my cup to the extent that was in my control. And then during rotations that weren't as time consuming, I was really making sure I got those 9 hours, putting healthy practices into place. When I was working overnight, I utilized things like melatonin so that I was sleeping better during the day. So I was still able to refill my cup on those night shifts, and I was waking up and still refreshed overnight. So there are certain things you can do based on your shifts to make that happen. Power naps were my best friend. I love a good power nap. And whenever I was able to do that on a 24-hour shift even, or a night shift, my mental clarity, my productivity, my performance on that shift significantly improved. So it's really about learning how I can implement healthy sleep practices, even within the limited time that I had, and even within the crazy schedule, to still make a difference.
And you say 9 hours. How do you know that your number is 9 hours? How does somebody figure that out?
That's a great question. So I always start by telling people, sleep need is like shoe size. There is no one size fits all. So people hear, 7 to 8 hours, and think that if you get 7 to 8 hours, you should be fine. If I sleep for 7 hours, I'm exhausted. It's not enough for me. For me personally, it took a lot of experimentation. So I would, get 8 hours, see how I feel, get 9 hours, see how I feel. And what I like to tell people, it is the number of hours that you need to function optimally with the amount of energy you need to get through your day, and not needing substances like caffeine and things like that. Because people say, I can get by on 5 hours, but we don't want you to just get by in life. We want you to function optimally. So what is that optimal number? What I say for people who have this luxury, and I understand many people don't, is take a sleepcation, a vacation that is centered around sleep. So you have time off, and some hotels actually offer packages for this. You have a time off. Separate yourself from your sleep space, because that in itself can come with some cognitive things that can distort your sleep. And give yourself time, set it up for sleep, do some calming practice routines, practice meditation, whatever, but allow your body to fall asleep at its natural time and wake up at its natural time. Don't drink caffeine, energy drinks, or anything like that. For the first couple of days, you're sleeping off sleep debt. So your body's like, we get to sleep. Let's, catch up on this. But after that, you fall into your natural rhythm. And you may say, for me, my natural rhythm actually is like falling asleep around midnight to 12:30 and then waking up at like 9 to 9:30 a.m. So I'm a night owl and I need 9 hours of sleep. And then I kind of work backwards to figure out how that can fit within my normal day.
Which is difficult if your job starts at 6 or 7 in the morning. So the optimal performance of the day, it's not necessarily like like when you open your eyes, how you feel, or how you feel at 9 a.m. or an hour after you're awake. It's your overall performance for the day.
100%, because an early bird can get insufficient sleep but still feel good in the morning. But then by noon or by 3 p.m.
After
or by
lunch.
4 p.m. They're like wiped out. Whereas me, I'm a natural night owl, and unfortunately the world is not set up for night owls. It just doesn't work for us, unfortunately. Yep. So no matter what, I'm not at my best and peak energy in the morning, whether I get 9 hours or not. Like, that's just not the time that my circadian rhythm is sending me the strongest alerting factors. However, after 9 hours, I can make it through my day still with good energy. I'm happy. I'm not irritable. I can focus. I can be productive. I don't need caffeine, which caffeine doesn't necessarily do anything for me personally anyways, but I don't need those things. So I know that 9 hours is that number, but not because I felt super peppy in the morning, but because I was able to function optimally throughout my entire day. And then once it got to my bedtime, I was able to fall asleep, naturally. So that is my number.
Life of responsibility is not set up for night owls. I mean, there's plenty of things that you could do. It's just that whole being responsible piece where it functions where the sun's up kind of thing. Very interesting. You mentioned melatonin. I'm just kind of curious can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I like to think of melatonin as a tool. So first of all, our bodies naturally produce melatonin from our pineal gland. And also a lot of research is coming out to say a lot of our melatonin is produced in our gut, but pineal gland in the brain. And this is a hormone that sets the stage for sleep. And there are certain variations and things that happen within your circadian rhythm, like your body temperature dropping and darkness that signals to your brain that it's time to release melatonin because we need to set the stage for sleep. Of course, there are so many things that we do in our lives, like being exposed to bright light all the time and not keeping a consistent schedule that can throw off when and how your melatonin is released. But the main thing is to utilize and really bolster your natural melatonin rhythm. But when you're in a situation such as working night shift or traveling, you have jet lag, melatonin can be used as a tool to help reset your circadian rhythm so that it's in alignment with your day-to-day schedule. So if you're traveling and you need to fall asleep earlier than what you would have at your original time zone, melatonin can be used to shift your circadian rhythm to say, hey, no, this is the time it's getting dark here that you need to fall asleep. And then also, if you're working a night shift, it's the middle of the day, it's going to be very difficult for your body your body's not going to naturally release melatonin at that time. So you can use it as a tool to say, oh no, this is when we need to prepare to sleep and kind of, reset your schedule. So it's a good tool to utilize, but I don't think it should be dependent on a day-to-day basis. Like your routines and behaviors should set yourself up for your natural melatonin release.
And are there natural things that you could do? Like the first thing that popped into my mind, and Thomas, you probably be able to back this one up, is breath work. Are there certain things? I know the light thing, blue screen, stuff like that is going to affect this. Are there natural remedies when we need them? I know a lot of us travel, and there's certain ways, whether you travel east to west or west to east, whatever, it gets tough. So what are some things that we can do to naturally trigger our melatonin when we need this, when we fall out of our rhythm?
Yeah. So I would say when it comes strictly to melatonin release, melatonin is a hormone of darkness, we like to say. So really, really manipulating your light exposure is going to be the best way to signal your melatonin release. So what that means is not like, okay, I'm going to bed at 9, at 8:50, I'm turning the lights off. It's like, if you're going to bed at 9, at 7, you need to start having at least darkening of the space or the light in your space. So like dimming lights, using bedside lamps, using candles, because that signals to your body that it's time to release your melatonin. The other thing is there's a natural drop in body temperature. Your body's temperature has actually dropped by 1 to 3 degrees in order to facilitate the transition to sleep. And part of that facilitation is melatonin release. So turning the temperature down when you're preparing for bed is going to be super helpful to make that happen. I'm sorry. And then I actually just posted about this. Showering at night, about an hour or two before you go to bed, a hot shower actually helps to dissipate heat from your body, which decreases your body temperature, helps to signal the melatonin release, and also can help you transition to sleep. So all of those things can help utilize and take advantage of your natural melatonin release. And then there are certain foods, there's more research needs to be done in this. It's not, it's not super definitive. There are certain foods that can trigger melatonin release. Tart cherry juice is one of them. Warm milk, you may have heard like, oh yeah, drink a glass of warm milk. There's truth to that. There are certain foods that can actually trigger melatonin release that can make it easier to fall asleep too.
So that's awesome. For some reason, that puts a smile on my face, even just thinking about doing this stuff and getting ready for bed. And how much of this stuff that Thomas actually does on a regular basis is fascinating.
Yeah.
So I just want to say something. I just want to see where it takes you. I'm just interested where our listeners would relate these two things to: physician burnout with sleep, lack of sleep. What does that make you think?
Sleep creates resilience. And without resilience, you are very vulnerable to burnout. And so I believe that sleep is a huge factor. There are several others, but I think one of the biggest in physician burnout, because you are not giving one, like I said, I like to think of sleep as self-care. You're not filling your cup properly every night because you're not able to sleep. Your emotional regulatory center speaks to your the emotional control centers in the brain, so that your emotions are better under control, for lack of a better phrase for that. So you're more likely to be irritable, you're more likely to make poor decisions, and you're more likely to be anxious and depressed, which then also affects sleep and become a vicious cycle. So I think when it comes to burnout, lack of sleep and lack of insufficient sleep plays a huge role. And I think that was something that we put more emphasis on and really allowed physicians in general, but other people with, similar schedules to get more sleep, that we would see less burnout 100%.
Why? This made me think, I wonder why, like, the physician schedule is so demanding like that. Why do we, if we live life by design, and we thank you, by the way, for what you've done, the work that you've put into yourself, investing in yourself to provide the service for everyone else. I can't thank you enough for that. Why do we then get to this point, like, to put you on a schedule that's like, no, I know there's some surgery, some procedures where, like, tough cookies, like, you're going to be standing in that room for 14, 16 hours. That's just the way that it goes to get the job done. But sometimes it's not like that. Why do you think that we drive a schedule that hurts physicians?
Brett, I wish I had a good answer for that. What I will say, what I learned even throughout my interviews for residency. So when I was interviewing for residency, they had made the transition to have an 80-hour work week cap, where you couldn't work more than 80 hours straight, or more than 80 hours in 1 week. But that's like on average. So some weeks could be more, some weeks could be less, average 80 hours. And there were older individuals who had, been physicians obviously much longer than I had. And they were like, this just doesn't make sense. Back in my day, we would work for 400 hours straight. In
case anybody doesn't know, 80 hours is absolutely ridiculous in itself.
If you think for most people, the average work week is 40 hours. This is double that. And that was like the cap, but it could be longer than that, right? And so I think a lot of it comes down to just, this is how we did it, and this is how you should do it. And kind of this like initiation into the world of being a physician. Some small amount, I guess, of merit to it is that some physicians were like, you need to see the patient experience as wholly as possible, meaning they get admitted, what happens while they're there, what happens to discharge, which kind of, right? But they're still going to probably be there tomorrow. Like, I think that is just the way that things have been done. There are certain institutions that have now gotten rid of the 24-hour schedule, and it is strictly a day and night system. And so I think that shift is starting. But I think it's just so ingrained in the process of it. Like, the reason that residents, physician doctors are called residents, is because they used to actually live in the hospital. They were residents of the hospital. So they lived there, and it was literally a 24-hour thing. You give your life to this. And I think all of that is still very much ingrained in us. Like, you give your life to this world. So that means your waking life, your sleep life. And so there's still a lot of change that needs to happen with that concept.
Yeah. And like anesthesiologists too. I mean, if you're there putting someone to rest, putting them to sleep for the procedure, and then like they got to through the procedure, and then there's the recovery, session of that too. So there are definitely specialties that like kind of fall in this thing. Like, well, that's just the way it is. But it makes me think of that old story of you go to Christmas and your mom is cooking a ham or something. You say, Mom, why do you cut the end off the ham? She's like, well, that's just the way Grandma showed me. And you go ask Grandma, why you cut the end off the ham? Because it won't fit in the pan. It's funny to see it come together.
It's 100%.
I've got one more question for you. What does physician burnout mean to you?
To me, it means when you're in a space that you are not enjoying what you do, and there is a mental stress and angst that comes with performing your duties. And so I think for a lot of physicians, we come into it because we love it, right? We want to help people. We love to take care of people. We're problem solvers. We're all this and that. But then it becomes a point that there is so much stress and angst associated with that role because of all the extra things that come into it, that it's no longer an enjoyable thing. And there are mental struggles along with physical struggles. And at that point, you're reaching burnout. There's no more enjoyment, and there are negative consequences associated with the role.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree. Thomas, do you have any questions? I feel like I'm just so engaged in like driving. It's so entertaining.
No, it's perfect.
Awesome.
I think one last question due to time here. How can our listeners hear more and follow you on social and even work with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start by saying, I provide consultations for individuals who suffer from chronic insomnia. So cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. You can go to my website, thesolutionissleep.com, and to look into some of my packages, schedule a call, and I like to discuss and make sure we're a good fit. What I have started to do more recently, and what I really am loving and excited about, is stepping into the corporate space in the work world, because I think so much of insufficient sleep is affected by our jobs and what we do in the 8, 9, 10 hours of the day before we try to go to sleep. And so being able to access and touch people on that larger scale and level has been so exciting. And I'm seeing so much change, and people are realizing that they can function and produce and all these things, engage so much better when they're getting better sleep. So I've worked with several corporations to say, hey, this is how you set this up for sleep, and specifically to their employees, this is how you set yourself up for better sleep to be better in the workplace. And again, you can go to my website, thesolutionissleep.com, to look more into that. Find me on LinkedIn. You can just type in Dr. Angela Holliday-Bell. And then again, on Instagram, I try to be entertaining, but also educational. And you can find me under @sleep_MD.
@sleep_MD. Very amazing stuff. I've enjoyed our conversation greatly, and I could just go on for hours and hours. It shows your passion for, the constant growth. And I heard a new friend of mine actually last week call it a seeker. And if we all live with this path of seeking, not necessarily the truth as much, but just the knowledge, and then applying it and learning from it. And I think that's just, imagine how much that we can give back to each other if we all sought that particular thing,
100%. Part of being a doctor is being a lifelong learner. That will always be in me, always trying to find solutions and help other people find them too. So I'm blessed to be in that position, something I always plan to do, and I'm happy to help anybody that I can.
I will say one last thing. Sorry, Thomas. I noticed, like, when I jumped on your website, there's something that pops up, and it's a free 7-day guide, right?
Yeah, 7 days to better sleep.
Yeah. So I would highly suggest everybody going on there and just checking it out, because that's the first thing. What I love in the world of sales is, when somebody says, I'm just looking, well, hey, congratulations, because that's step number one, right? And you've got it done. So even if you don't feel that you are in this chronic path or anything, check it out. Go there, check it out, because just the little bits and pieces that you can gain and grow as a person, just imagine what you can do for your patients, what you can do for your husband or your wife, your children, because nobody likes a upset person, right? And if we can find these ways to better ourselves each and every day, why not go out and check it out?
100%. Everyone can benefit from better sleep, no matter what stage you're in. Everyone can benefit.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Dr. Holliday-Bell, we really appreciate you joining us today. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we end this episode?
Yeah. So I first just want to say, one thing I try to empower people to do is ask for help. I think sleep is one of those things that you just feel that if you can't sleep, you're just stuck in this life of sleeplessness. And this is just what life is, whether you're a parent or it's because of work or you're a physician, you're a resident. You don't have to be stuck in that cycle, and it's okay to ask for help. So I want to empower anyone who has been living a life like that. Like, it's not a fun life to live, and you deserve to sleep. So ask for help, look for resources, and, do yourself a favor by getting the best sleep you can.
It's great advice.
Well, it was an absolute delight to have you on. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast.
Thanks so much,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.